why I think some way, or I have a position, why, what my interests are, what my background is, what my culture is, and why the other one thinks differently. And I think there's no better place than Lebanon to elaborate on these issues, because this is really an amazing laboratory of coexistence of different traditions and culture. As you know, not always peaceful. As a Lebanese, know very well, and I experience not always peaceful, but I think a country that has a lot to teach to the rest of the humanity on how to live together in respect. Not always easy. Even now, not all relationships are good, and not everybody is in good terms, but I think there is an effort to be recognized by the whole world on how Christians and Muslims and different kinds of Muslims and Druze and other religions can live together in one place, in one little place. But every time you move around Lebanon, you discover, okay, this is a Christian village, okay, this is a Druze village, this is and they all live next to each other. And Beirut, look around, you find a mosque, and then you find a church, and then you find another church, and then an Orthodox church, a Maronite church. So it is, especially for you, Italians. We also have problems. I'm Italian. We have problems among ourselves, and we're much more similar, and yet we manage to fight among ourselves. Imagine how in a place like Lebanon, with a millenary history, groups that live together. As you know, I work for the United Nations. I'm the country director of UNDP, the UN Development Program. I have a first I've been here for a year. I'm here with my family. I'm from Sicily originally. I grew up in Rome, but I was born in Messina, Sicily, and my family is all Sicilian. I've traveled around the world with the UN. I started a long time ago now, it seems, as an intern in New York. Just took any money that I had and flew to New York and knocked at every door, and finally they told me, yes, we have a little internship in the Office of Human Resources. I thought, this is really not what I want to do. But it's a step inside the United Nations, and from there I started my career, and I worked with the UN in Liberia, I worked in Central America, in South America, and now I am in Lebanon. I also worked in Bosnia for a while, but not with the United Nations. At the beginning I wanted to do peacekeeping. It was very romantic, this idea to participate in the peacekeeping missions, and then I realized that as I grew older, it's not easy to do peacekeeping and then having a family and children. And so I went into the mosque. Into the more, not less difficult, but more quiet work of development. Which means my assignments are normally 3 to 4 years. We work in a place, and then we are rotated depending on the needs of the organization. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about the UN in Lebanon. I know the Lebanese might know many of the things that I'm going to say, but perhaps less so the Italian group. Lebanon is a very important country for the UN, for another reason, for its history, unfortunately for its tragic history, and the civil war and the aftermath of the civil war and the subsequent smaller wars that have happened, but also for its position, for its geographical position. This is, as you might have heard, and it's so true, it's really the entryway to the Middle East. Yet it is a country that is Arab, but it's a country that has, even physically, with its port and its shore, it's a geographical and cultural door to the Middle East. Everybody's here. All embassies, UN, a lot of secret services as well. Everybody wants to be there. dynamics of the Middle East, the relationship between Shia, Sunni, the European powers, and the US, and Russia, and China, Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, they're all here. And why they're here? Because this is a country that is unbelievably free also. If you look at compare it, especially with the rest of the region, Lebanon has been able to maintain an exceptional level of freedom of expression, freedom of speech, a functioning, some Lebanese might not agree, with the democratic system. I'm sure the Lebanese are thinking, no, this is not true, it's not functioning at all, but believe me, I have seen non-functioning countries. And this is a place where you can move freely, it's very safe. And so you can do here things that in other countries, especially the region, you cannot. And so Lebanon is a place where the UN has chosen for headquarters of, for example, the Regional Economic Commission. It's called ESWA. So you have in Beirut the headquarters of the Economic Commission for West Asia, where all the countries of the Middle East and North Africa are represented. Let's say all the countries of the Arab world are represented and discuss economic and social affairs. It's a place of the oldest peacekeeping mission of the United Nations, that is UNDP. That, as you know, has a very big Italian contingent. The commander of UNDP is Italian. And has a very important task of maintaining peace in South Lebanon, what we call the region that is south of the Litani region. That has been the theater of many violent events ever since 1978, and has now a very robust contingent of 12,000 blue helmets. And it's the oldest peacekeeping mission, and it's the only one also in the world that has a naval unit as ships. The work of UNDP is to maintain peace in the south, and I don't think that many people know that even if in the paper you read violent accusations between Israel and Hezbollah and Lebanon, and every month, or almost every month, Israeli officers and Lebanese officers meet inside UNDP, and they discuss issues, and they agree always to take action on these issues in a peaceful way. And the work to define the border between Israel and Lebanon continues, little by little, agreement by agreement. Every 50 meters, a blue post marking the border between the two countries. It's halfway, but it continues. So despite the rhetoric, despite sometimes the tones are very too high and too extreme, the work continues. And there is a very good collaboration between the army, UNIFIL, and the authorities of the south. Then there is the humanitarian work of the United Nations that has become very important at this time, because, as you know, Lebanon right now has one of the worst, if not the worst, humanitarian crisis in the world. Not many people outside Lebanon are aware of what's going on in this country. Almost 1 million Syrians have come to Lebanon over the past year and a half. When I arrived here in June 2012, there were 20,000 Syrian refugees. Now there are registered 800,000 Syrian refugees, and there are probably another 200,000 that are not registered. This means that almost a quarter of the population of Lebanon is now Syrian refugees, and some Palestinian, a few hundred, tens of thousands of Palestinians that came from Syria. For Lebanese, is even hard to imagine how their country has been able to to absorb such a large number of people. But for people outside, when I say these numbers, they're simply too big, and it's very difficult to put them in reality. But think about how we react when we receive a few hundreds in Lampedusa. We see boats with the... overall, I think we have received just this year about 30,000 immigrants. Imagine what it means to receive a quarter, the equivalent of a quarter of a population or a little bit more than 1 year. Imagine if Italy all of a sudden receives 12, 15 million people coming from France, and they all come, and it is amazing that how this country has been able to absorb this population. It's true that historically there's a lot of relationship between Lebanon and Syria, and the first wave maybe were received by families and friends, but after that, these people who have escaped the horror of the Syrian war, they came with nothing. And they have been received in Lebanese families. After a while, those who could have started to pay rent. Others have, unfortunately, had to live in informal settlements all over. But this is a huge humanitarian crisis. So what used to be a small humanitarian component of the UN, now it is the largest, one of the largest operations in the world, in Lebanon, as well as in Jordan, and less so in other neighboring countries. Agencies like UNHCR, the UN High Commission for Refugees, the WFP, that is the World Food Programme, UNICEF, they either didn't work here or used to be very small offices. Now there are hundreds of people working all over the country, distributing humanitarian relief to refugees, whether it is food, whether it is non-food items, whether it is facilitating access to medical health, education. Think about the fact that there are probably 300,000 Syrian children who don't have access to school anymore, and there's a very big effort to try to insert them, include them in the Lebanese public system. So the country is under a lot of stress. It's suffering a heavy burden. At the same time, hundreds of thousands of people are living in extremely difficult conditions, and the United Nations is trying to support these people, the refugees, but also support Lebanon to cope with this situation. And this is right now the biggest task that the UN is performing in Lebanon. We also have what is called a political mission, a special representative of the Secretary General of the UN. His name is Derek Langley, he's British. He reports directly to the Secretary General. He has a small office, and he's in charge of the diplomatic aspect of the work, trying to meet with all the Lebanese political parties and social notable people, and performing the good offices. The main task is to implement what is known as the resolution of the Security Council 1701. Those of you who don't know the resolution 1701, go back and read it, because it's the most important resolution of the UN, is the recent one. At the same time, we are working to facilitate the access to Syria for UN staff, particularly right now the UN mission that is inspecting the chemical weapons of the Syrian army. They are all coming through Lebanon, and we are providing to them logistic and financial services so that they can perform the work. So there is a lot of work going on. At the same time, we have about 20 UN agencies working on development. Some of them you must know: FAO, Population Fund, UNICEF, UNESCO, UNIDO, etc. Overall, we are more than 2,000 people, most of them Lebanese, working for the UN, 12,000 blue helmets. So I think for a country of this relative size and population, we might be the country with the highest density of UN staff in the world. And of course, we also work with the international and national NGOs.